Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever felt like some people are wired for success while others remain stuck in place? What if the only difference between greatness and mediocrity isn't talent, but belief? And what would change in your life if you started seeing your dreams so vividly that they began pulling you forward every single day? The truth is, belief is the starting point of every breakthrough. When you believe something is possible, you remove the invisible chains that once held you back. Why is this so important? Because without unshakable belief, even your best plans will eventually collapse under the weight of fear and doubt. So how do you begin shifting your mindset? You start by confronting every limitation you've accepted as truth, every story you've told yourself about what's not possible. Then, one by one, you replace those limitations with a bold, unwavering vision of who you could become. When belief is your foundation, even the impossible begins to feel within reach. In just a moment, you'll see exactly how to believe with such intensity that limitations no longer apply. This is where the power of inner vision takes hold. People often say, believe in yourself. But what does that really mean? Have you ever taken time to vividly imagine your future? Not as a distant hope, but as a crystal clear vision? If you can't see it inside, how can you ever build it outside? Many people live in constant reaction mode, drifting from day to day. But the moment you craft a vision so strong, so alive in your mind, it begins to influence your thoughts, your habits, your entire direction in life. Because vision always comes before creation. History proves it. The Eiffel Tower, the telephone, the first heart transplant. None of them started with action. They all began with a picture in someone's mind. That image, nurtured with belief, eventually shaped the world. What separates those who create the extraordinary from the rest isn't just skill or luck. It's their capacity to see what doesn't yet exist with such clarity. It feels inevitable. So how do you build this inner vision for your life? Begin each morning with your eyes closed and your mind wide open. Picture the life you want to create. See the home you dream of living in. Feel the warmth of meaningful relationships. Sense the pride that comes from doing work that matters. Walk through it in your mind. Notice the sounds, the textures, the colors. Let it become so vivid that your imagination feels more real than the present. Now, go further. Don't just imagine your vision. Live from it. Picture yourself already immersed in deep, meaningful relationships. Feel the energy of a healthy body radiating from within. But don't stop at imagining these things. Begin to act, think, and make decisions as if that version of you already exists. Ask yourself, what would the version of me who's already living this vision choose right now? This subtle shift rewires your behavior. It moves you away from hoping and wishing and toward becoming and embodying. The space between your current life and your envisioned future starts to shrink. Not because you're forcing change, but because your thoughts, actions, and identity begin to align. What's even more fascinating is how this practice works on a neurological level. Your brain doesn't truly know the difference between an intensely imagined experience and a real one. Both fire up similar neural circuits. Every time you vividly rehearse your dream life in your mind, you're installing a blueprint into your brain, a mental roadmap that it begins to follow. Over time, your brain treats this vision as familiar territory, making it easier for you to take aligned action with confidence. Consider the story of Henry Ford. Long before the first affordable car rolled off his assembly line, he had already seen a world where ordinary people, not just the wealthy, owned automobiles. At a time when cars were exclusive luxury items, that idea seemed absurd. But Ford didn't just visualize the future. He stepped into it mentally, so deeply and persistently that it became inevitable. His competitors couldn't just match his manufacturing systems. They couldn't match his imagination. That's the power of inner vision. It doesn't just guide your thinking. It fine-tunes your attention. When you hold a clear, focused picture of what you're building, your mind starts filtering reality through that lens. Suddenly, you begin to notice resources, opportunities, and people that have always been there, but now they stand out. Why? Because they match the story you've started telling yourself. This isn't some abstract or mystical idea. It's rooted in neuroscience. It's your brain's reticular activating system at work. It tunes your awareness to what matters most, based on the thoughts you repeatedly feed it. So ask yourself honestly, what kind of inner vision are you feeding today? Is it precise and powerful, or vague and borrowed from someone else's expectations? Are you cultivating a life you truly desire, or just entertaining daydreams that disappear as quickly as they come? And most importantly, how would your life begin to change if you treated your vision not as a distant fantasy, but as a current reality in motion? What if you spoke about it with quiet certainty, walked toward it daily, and allowed your choices to reflect its truth? Now imagine this. What if your decisions weren't based on your current circumstances, but on the person you're actively becoming? That subtle shift changes everything. It's the dividing line between wishful thinking and powerful, transformative vision. One sits back and waits for reality to adjust. The other reshapes reality from the inside out, guided by unshakable inner belief. Your future doesn't begin when something finally happens externally. It begins the moment you create it internally. So, see your vision with absolute clarity. Hold on to it with unwavering grip. And most importantly, begin to live from it now. Faith, after all, isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you decide to practice. Most people imagine faith as a sudden lightning bolt, something that strikes randomly and powerfully. But in truth, belief is a conscious choice. It's something you step into long before you see the results. You must decide to believe in your own potential, your goals, your purpose, before you've gathered any evidence to support it. Why is this so essential? Because every breakthrough the world has ever celebrated started as an invisible seed of faith. No one waits to believe after the victory has arrived. The belief comes first. That's what fuels the action that produces results. Faith acts as the invisible bridge between your current reality and the life you're striving to create. It's the quiet strength that allows you to take your next step, even when it feels like you're walking across thin air, and somehow trust that solid ground will appear. But let's be clear, this isn't about blind hope or naive optimism. It's about choosing certainty even when uncertainty surrounds you. It's the quiet, deliberate stance of someone who refuses to let their current limitations define their long-term trajectory. If you look at the most accomplished people throughout history, they weren't always the most gifted or lucky. What set them apart was the moment they chose to believe, precisely when doubt seemed most logical. So, how do you build this kind of grounded, unwavering faith? It starts with what you say to yourself each morning. Speak words that align with who you're becoming. Say it with conviction. I am capable. I am evolving. I am meant for something meaningful. These aren't just nice affirmations. When spoken consistently, they begin to reshape your internal identity. Over time, your inner world shifts, and so do your actions. You stop reacting based on who you've been and start responding based on who you're becoming. You begin to operate from a new mental frequency, a higher sense of self. And in doing so, you don't just hope for change. You become the force that drives it. Let this be your reminder. Your journey forward is built not on proof, but on persistent belief. Continue building your faith the way a master mason builds a wall, one strong, intentional brick at a time. A skilled craftsman doesn't stop to question whether each brick will hold. They trust the structure, the method, the foundation. And just like that, you must trust that every faithful thought you place today contributes to the stronghold of belief you're constructing. Doubt will appear, it always does, but it doesn't have to take up permanent residence. Acknowledge its presence, then replace it deliberately with a belief that serves your future. This mental discipline works like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Like physical training, belief requires consistency, repetition, and intention. At the heart of this lies a powerful psychological principle, the self-fulfilling prophecy. When you decide to believe in something, especially in yourself, your behaviors start aligning with that belief, often in subtle but significant ways. You move differently, speak with more conviction, make bolder choices, and as a result, the world responds. By choosing to believe in your own potential, you unconsciously shift into patterns that support success. Take Thomas Edison, for example. He didn't just stumble upon the light bulb. He chose again and again to believe in its possibility, even after 1,000 failed attempts. Each so-called failure could have been reason enough to walk away. But Edison didn't see failure as defeat. He saw it as discovery, each setback simply revealing one more way that wouldn't work. His faith wasn't in each individual test. It was in the final outcome, and that belief, unyielding, patient, powerful, carried him forward when logic said stop. So what about you? Will you wait for everything to feel just right before you start believing? Or will you build your belief now, brick by brick, thought by thought? Waiting assumes faith is something that happens after circumstances align. But real, transformative faith doesn't wait. It leads. It shows up first and reshapes the world around it. You see, faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the decision to keep going in spite of it. It's a quiet voice that says, I believe, even when the evidence hasn't arrived yet. And yes, even the most successful, most celebrated people in the world wrestle with moments of uncertainty. But what separates them is their willingness to choose belief anyway, to keep stacking bricks of faith long before the final structure is visible. So today, choose to believe. Build your inner fortress one thought at a time, and trust that everything you're creating is leading somewhere meaningful. What sets extraordinary individuals apart isn't that they're free from fear. It's that they've trained themselves to treat faith as a choice, not a fleeting emotion. While their feelings may shift like the weather, their commitment to belief stands firm like bedrock. They don't wait for perfect conditions or emotional certainty. Instead, they choose faith deliberately again and again. And you can too. Begin by becoming intentional about the thoughts you allow into your mind. Be vigilant with your inner dialogue. Protect your belief system like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Over time, that conscious decision will begin to reshape not only your inner experience, but your external reality as well. Faith isn't just about anticipating some bright, distant future. It's about deciding who you are right now, today. It's about choosing to become the kind of person who moves forward even when fear whispers reasons to retreat. Doubt is sneaky. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you you're not ready, not talented enough, too late, too flawed. But let's be honest. How many dreams has that quiet voice stolen before they even had the chance to begin? Doubt is a thief that thrives in the shadows. The longer it's left unchallenged, the stronger it becomes. But when you shine the light of action on it, it starts to fade. So how do you reclaim your power? You take action anyway. Speak up, even if your voice trembles. Take that first step, even if your knees are shaking. Start before you're ready, because courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about moving forward in its presence. Let's break down how doubt really works. It usually starts small, just a quiet thought in the back of your mind. Can I really do this? What if I fail? If left unanswered, it gains momentum and eventually becomes a wall between you and your potential. The danger of doubt isn't just that it exists. Everyone experiences it, but that it disguises itself so well. It wears the mask of logic, responsibility, and self-preservation. But beneath that disguise is its true goal: to keep you playing small, to maintain your comfort zone, and to prevent you from uncovering the incredible power you already have. Remember this: the most accomplished people aren't those who've silenced all their doubts. They're the ones who act despite them. They've learned that progress doesn't require certainty, only willingness. And here's the magic. The moment you take that bold step, even while uncertain, you begin gathering proof that you're capable. Each action builds confidence, and each small win chips away at doubt's grip. Every small win becomes undeniable evidence that the limiting voice inside you is wrong. Bit by bit, doubt loses its grip. But how do you truly dismantle doubt's influence? It begins with awareness. You must recognize doubt not as truth, but as a primitive protection mechanism. Your brain was built to keep you alive, not to make you extraordinary. It prioritizes safety over significance. Once you understand that, you gain the power to question doubt rather than obey it. When that inner voice warns you to stay small, respond with clarity. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I choose growth over comfort. That simple shift in dialogue reclaims your agency. Next, Fill your environment with proof that challenges those doubts. Study the journeys of people who've overcome the very obstacles you face. Surround yourself with inspiration. And most importantly, reflect on your own wins, big or small. Keep a journal, build a vision board, or tape a note to your mirror that reminds you of what you're capable of when you're at your best. Because here's the truth. External evidence often has the power to silence internal criticism. Just look at Kate Smith. She didn't become a millionaire vocalist by waiting until she felt ready. Readiness never arrived on its own. She stepped forward anyway. She partnered with Ted Collins, committed to her craft, and created a legacy most could only dream of. But did she face fear? Absolutely. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, and the ever-familiar question, who do you think you are? But she understood a powerful truth, one that applies to us all. You don't overcome doubt by reasoning with it. You overcome it by acting in the face of it. Every time she stepped onto a stage, every time her voice filled a room, she wasn't just performing. She was making a bold declaration. My purpose is greater than my fear. That was her true magic. Not confidence without fear, but courage with it. This same principle extends to your life, no matter what your dream is. Whether you're building a business, writing a book, or simply trying to believe in yourself again, the way forward is through action. But pause and ask yourself, if you keep letting doubt lead the way, where will you be in 5 years? This isn't just a rhetorical question, it's a warning. Doubt doesn't fade with time. It compounds. Just like interest, it grows stronger every time you give into it. That tiny whisper of not today becomes the echo of if only I had 5 years down the road. Don't let that happen. Are you really willing to let fear sit at the head of your table? To give it the authority to make your choices, shape your limits, and ultimately define who you become? Or will you reassign it to the sidelines? Acknowledged perhaps, but never obeyed? That choice, though it may seem subtle, has the power to echo through every area of your life. Your relationships, your goals, your self-worth, your future. The consequences don't just touch a moment. They ripple across a lifetime. Breaking free from doubt isn't a dramatic, one-time breakthrough. It's a steady, deliberate practice, a muscle that strengthens only with regular use. Start small. Take daily steps of courage. Speak up when you feel nervous. Show up when you'd rather hide. And when fear does win for a day, don't beat yourself up. Learn from it and recommit. This battle against doubt isn't won by being perfect, but by being persistent. The key is resilience, the kind that rises after every setback and grows stronger with every attempt. Doubt isn't a prophecy. It's not some inevitable truth about your future. It's a question, one that's daring you to respond. So answer it with action. Confront it with courage. Defy it by becoming the person it told you you could never be. That's the ultimate response. Now let's talk about a different kind of power, the power of setting goals. Goal setting isn't just a productivity hack or another item on your to-do list. It's the act of designing the blueprint of your life. Without clear goals, you're like a ship drifting without a map, vulnerable to every gust of fear, every wave of distraction. But when you set specific, burning goals, you become the navigator. You take the wheel and steer with purpose. You don't just move, you move with direction. Why does this matter so much? Because when the mind lacks focus, it becomes a playground for fear. Confusion and distraction creep in. But the moment you define what you're after, your mind sharpens. Clarity becomes your ally. So be precise. What exactly do you want? By when? And just as importantly, why does it matter to you? How will it feel when you finally get there? There's a deeper truth about goals that many overlook. Your goals don't just change your circumstances, they change your identity. When you set a clear objective, you're not only defining a destination, you're defining who you need to become in order to reach it. And that transformation doesn't begin when you cross the finish line. It begins the moment you write your goal down and commit to it. Think about how your brain responds to this process. When you set a clear, specific goal, your brain's reticular activating system kicks in. This internal filter starts paying attention to things in your environment that align with your intention. But when your goal is vague, like I want to do better, your brain has nothing to focus on, nothing concrete to find or prioritize. So if you truly want to create lasting change, get specific. Define your destination. fuel it with emotion, and then begin walking toward it with conviction. Let's keep going. There's more power in you than you think. Now consider this. Saying I want to increase my income is one thing. But declaring, I will increase my income by 30% within the next 18 months by developing 3 new client acquisition channels is something else entirely. That kind of clarity activates your mind. It programs your focus to begin identifying specific opportunities, ideas, and strategies that might have otherwise slipped past unnoticed. So how do you set goals with the power to actually reshape your reality? It starts with desire, pure and unfiltered by doubt or hesitation. Ask yourself, what would I truly pursue if success were absolutely guaranteed? If failure weren't even an option, what dream would you dare chase? Once you've uncovered that raw desire, the next step is structure. Take that dream and give it definition. Use the SMART framework: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But don't stop there. Go further. Infuse those structured goals with emotional charge. Anchor them to what matters most to you. Link your objectives to your core values and your most meaningful visions for the future. When a goal is emotionally charged, it becomes magnetic. Now here's a powerful mental shift. Write your goals in the present tense, as if they're already your reality. Saying, I am earning $10,000 a month through my business activates entirely different neural circuits than saying, I want to try making more money online. The former sends a direct message to your subconscious. It begins aligning your mindset and your actions with that outcome. The latter is just a wish, lacking commitment and power. Think about Henry Ford. He didn't simply want to build a better car. His mission was to put the world on wheels. That wasn't just a product goal. It was a revolutionary vision. And it was so specific that it forced him to reimagine the entire manufacturing process. The assembly line didn't exist yet. But because his vision was clear, innovation became inevitable. That's the power of specificity. It doesn't just create direction, it creates momentum. Ford's precise goal left no room for vagueness or hesitation. It demanded breakthrough. And breakthrough came. Here's the truth. Most goals fail not because the dream wasn't big enough, but because the vision wasn't clear enough. When you lack clarity, you open the door to distractions, compromises, and excuses. But when you define your success with precision, you also define what you must sacrifice. Every great goal comes with a cost. Often the cost is saying no to anything that doesn't serve your vision. That kind of focus is what transforms vague dreams into tangible results. So what about you? Have you written down your goals like binding promises to yourself? Or are they still just drifting thoughts, pleasant but powerless, floating through your mind like passing clouds? Because until your goals live on paper, reviewed often, and pursued with intention, they remain just that, wishes. But the moment you write them, review them, and act on them consistently, they gain weight. They begin to shape your thoughts, your time, your decisions, and eventually, your reality. Let's continue. You're building something powerful. They become the blueprints, the architectural plans, from which you build the structure of your life. When you write something down, something shifts. The act itself forces your mind to move from vague ideas into crystal clarity. What once lived as a passing thought now takes on definition and form. Writing turns dreams into blueprints and intentions into commitments. It also introduces accountability. Once your goals exist outside your mind, they're harder to ignore, harder to abandon when the road gets difficult, as it inevitably will. Obstacles always show up. But when your goals are on paper, they stand as visible proof of your promise to yourself. That presence alone can give you strength when motivation fades. So begin today. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the right mood. Carve out just 30 minutes of uninterrupted time. Sit down with intention. Write out exactly what you want in every important area of your life. Your career, your relationships, your health, your finances, your personal growth, and how you plan to contribute to the world. Be bold. Be specific. Don't hold back. Once you've done that, map out the first 3 actions you can take toward each goal. Then do something most people never do. Put those actions in your calendar. Make them non-negotiable appointments with your future self. Because the future you want isn't created in a single leap. It's built day by day through focused choices. And here's something powerful to remember. Your goals aren't separate from you. They are reflections of your deepest identity, your truest values, and your highest vision for yourself. They are waiting not for the perfect opportunity, but for your commitment. Through intention and consistent action, you bring them to life. But what determines whether those goals ever become reality? Resilience. Your ability to rise, not just once but again and again, will determine your altitude in life. When adversity strikes, it's not a sign to retreat. It's a signal that you're being tested, measured for whether you're ready to level up. The journey to greatness isn't paved with gold. It's forged through fire. Every setback you face, every betrayal you endure, every delay that frustrates your progress, none of it is meant to destroy you. It's meant to refine you, shape you, and make you stronger. That pressure, it's preparing you. So how do you build real resilience? You start by refusing to see failure as the end. You treat every challenge as part of the journey, not the conclusion of it. You remind yourself that falling down doesn't mean staying down. The truth is, your ability to overcome hardship is a far more reliable predictor of success than talent, degrees, or connections. Look around at those who've achieved extraordinary things. What do they have in common? It's not luck. It's not privilege. It's an uncommon relationship with adversity. They don't just survive difficulty. They use it. They squeeze wisdom, strength, and insight out of every hardship. And here's the encouraging part. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Like a muscle, it grows through resistance. Every time you refuse to quit, every time you push through when it would have been easier to walk away, you strengthen it. And your brain rewires itself accordingly. With each challenge you face and overcome, you forge new pathways, not just mentally, but emotionally and even spiritually. Let's keep going. There's more to unlock on your journey. This remarkable ability, neuroplasticity, is the biological foundation of resilience. Your brain literally reshapes itself to better handle future trials and challenges. But how do you begin to cultivate this transformative strength? It starts with something simple, yet powerful: reframing your relationship with failure. Instead of interpreting setbacks as proof that you're not good enough, what if you saw them as essential stepping stones in your personal evolution? Every misstep shows you what doesn't work. Every closed door nudges you toward a better path. This isn't just some feel-good mantra. It's strategic thinking. It's about adopting what psychologists refer to as an internal locus of control. This means accepting that while you can't control what happens around you, you always have control over how you respond. That single shift in perspective turns you from a passive victim of life's circumstances into an active creator of your destiny. So when adversity hits, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask instead, "What can I learn from this? How can I use this?" Think of Abraham Lincoln. Before he became one of America's most revered presidents, he lost numerous elections. But he didn't give up. He allowed each loss to strengthen his resolve. Along the way, he faced business failures, personal heartbreak, a nervous breakdown, and 8 electoral defeats. What makes Lincoln's story extraordinary isn't just that he endured. It's how he transformed each failure into wisdom. Every setback helped him refine his voice, better understand the people he served, and build the kind of coalitions that would carry him into history. Those lessons, forged in pain, became the foundation he stood on when he led the country through its greatest crisis. The truth is, the quality of your life isn't measured by whether you face adversity, because we all do, but by how you interpret and respond to it. Research into post-traumatic growth shows that those who find meaning in their suffering often emerge not just restored, but elevated. They come back wiser, more compassionate, and more focused than before. They don't merely return to who they were. They rise into who they were meant to become. So ask yourself, are you treating adversity like a wall that blocks you, or a hammer that's shaping your masterpiece? Your answer will reveal the direction your life is headed. When life throws obstacles your way, do you search for exits or lean in with curiosity and courage? Do you assign blame to circumstances, or do you take ownership and seek solutions? Do you repeat stories of defeat or rewrite them as narratives of growth? True resilience isn't about pretending to be invincible. It's about your ability to bounce back quickly and wisely. Of course, you'll feel disappointment, frustration, maybe even despair when life hits hard. The resilient don't deny these emotions. They simply refuse to let them make their decisions. They feel the pain, they learn from it, and then they use that energy to move forward. Because in the end, your resilience shapes the scale of your achievements, the depth of your relationships, and the scope of your contribution to the world. It determines not only whether you'll reach your goals, but who you will become along the way. Every difficulty you're facing right now could be preparing you for a level of success you can't yet see, but only if you're willing to embrace the lesson rather than run from it. And what's your greatest weapon in this process? Persistence. Not talent, not luck, persistence. Because most people don't fail from lack of ability. They fail because they gave up too soon. Talent may give you a head start, but it's persistence that gets you to the finish line. Why is persistence considered such a powerful secret weapon? Because over time, the world yields to those who refuse to give up. The ones who continue showing up even when the path gets rough. So how do you build this kind of mental endurance? Start small. Begin by showing up on days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Finish tasks even when quitting feels like the easier route. Try again, especially when that last no felt final. Think of all the brilliant ideas, dreams, and projects left incomplete. Not because they lack potential, but because they were abandoned too soon. The road to achievement is strewn with unfinished brilliance, not failed talent. History doesn't tend to remember the most naturally gifted. It remembers the ones who kept going. Think about the person with genius-level ability who starts 100 ventures, only to finish none. Now compare that to the individual with modest skills, but laser-sharp focus, pursuing one goal with relentless determination. Over time, who do you think succeeds? It's not a matter of talent. It's a matter of commitment. Persistence operates beyond simple hard work. It harnesses a compound effect. Each decision to continue, especially when it would be easier to quit, adds not just progress, but momentum. It's like water carving its way through stone. Each drop seems insignificant, but together, over time, they reshape mountains. That's the quiet force of persistence. It's often invisible in the moment, yet unstoppable in the long run. But why is true persistence so rare? Because it asks you to keep moving without immediate reward. And that directly challenges how we're wired as humans. Our brains are conditioned for instant gratification, quick wins, fast results. Yet greatness lives in the space between action and outcome, in a valley where you've sown seeds but haven't yet seen the harvest. It's in that gap that many give up, never realizing how close they were to a breakthrough. To build real persistence, you must change your relationship with discomfort. Begin to see it not as a warning, but as a signal. When you feel the strongest urge to stop, that may be the moment you're closest to a breakthrough. Start by keeping promises to yourself, even when they feel small. Finish your workout, even when you're exhausted. Complete your project, even when the excitement fades. Make that one extra sales call after you've faced rejection after rejection. Each of these actions might seem minor, but collectively, they rewire your brain. You start to associate persistence with eventual success, not frustration. Psychologists call this grit, the blend of passion and perseverance. It's not blind stubbornness. It's a focused drive, a belief that your vision is worth enduring the challenges, no matter how long it takes. People with grit don't need praise or applause to keep going. They're fueled by a quiet, inner standard, one that's resilient to failure, unaffected by delay. Look at the Wright brothers. Just two humble bicycle mechanics with no formal engineering education, limited money, no prestigious backing, and yet they dared to imagine something the world thought impossible, manned flight. While wealthier, better trained competitors chased glory with larger teams and more resources, the Wright brothers relied on persistence. Day after day, test after test, crash after crash, they never gave in to defeat. What the Wright brothers possessed wasn't luck or extraordinary resources. It was methodical persistence. Each failed test flight wasn't a defeat, but a lesson. They treated every setback as essential feedback. While others gave up on aviation after disappointment, the Wrights went back to their workshop, examined what didn't work, refined their designs, and prepared for the next trial. Their ultimate success didn't arrive by miracle. It was mathematical, earned through relentless, intelligent repetition. In any meaningful pursuit, the most dangerous moment isn't the start, when passion is fresh, nor is it at the finish line, when results are visible and motivation runs high. The real challenge comes in the messy middle. That murky phase when progress slows, doubt creeps in, and the excitement that once fueled you has quietly faded. This is the proving ground. This is where persistence shines brightest. The ability to continue executing with excellence, especially when the rewards are still out of sight, is what defines those who finish from those who simply gave up too soon. So ask yourself honestly, are you willing to outlast your obstacles? Or will you let a temporary defeat convince you to stop short of your potential? This isn't just a rhetorical question. It's a window into your future. The answer determines more than just what you'll accomplish. It determines who you're becoming. Because persistence doesn't only shift circumstances, it shapes character. It turns daydreamers into builders, wishful thinkers into doers, and raw potential into undeniable impact. Never forget, persistence isn't the absence of failure. It's the refusal to let failure have the last word. It's not about walking a flawless path. It's about rising after every fall. It's not about the absence of fear. It's about pressing forward in spite of it, turning fleeting courage into lasting results. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life. Wherever your thoughts go, your life eventually follows. Dwell on limitations, expect defeat, and you'll find yourself stalled. But if you direct your focus toward opportunity, growth, and greatness, life bends toward your expectations. Why does it happen this way? Because your mind sets your internal thermostat, and you cannot consistently perform beyond the identity you believe you possess. So how do you tune your mind to support your highest outcomes? Through daily habits that reinforce your vision. Speaking affirmations that build belief, practicing gratitude that grounds your energy, visualizing your success with clarity and emotion. Most importantly, by protecting your mental garden from the weeds of fear, doubt, and cynicism. Your thoughts are not mere background noise. They are active architects of your destiny. Every breakthrough you'll ever experience, every failure you'll have to overcome, will start in the same place, your mind. The landscape of your thinking determines far more than most people realize. This isn't some vague metaphysical idea. It's grounded psychological reality. The images, beliefs, and ideas you consistently hold in your mind become the blueprint from which your life is constructed. Not because of magic, but because your thoughts influence every decision you make, every action you take, and every opportunity or obstacle you notice around you. Your mind functions like an incredibly advanced filtering system. At any given moment, you are surrounded by millions of bits of information, but your conscious mind can only absorb a very small fraction of that input. So what determines what actually gets through? It's your dominant thought patterns. If your mental spotlight is constantly shining on obstacles, that's what you'll see: challenges, risks, roadblocks. But if you've trained your focus toward growth and opportunity, suddenly doors appear that others walk right past. It's the same world, the same moment, but a radically different experience. Not because the environment changed, but because your focus did. This isn't just about perception. It also directly influences performance. Psychologists refer to this as the self-fulfilling prophecy. Your beliefs shape your behaviors, and your behaviors bring those beliefs to life. Consider this. Athletes who repeatedly visualize themselves succeeding in their sport activate the same neural circuits as when they physically train. Executives who mentally rehearse confident presentations are far more likely to deliver them with clarity and poise. Your brain and nervous system don't fully differentiate between an imagined experience and a real one. Both form mental grooves that influence how you respond, perform, and progress. So how do you harness this immense power in your own life? Begin by auditing your thoughts with the same seriousness you'd give a financial statement. Examine your internal dialogue closely. What are the recurring thoughts that play on loop in your mind? What kinds of stories are you subconsciously telling yourself every day? These aren't just harmless musings, they're scripts. And those scripts become your reality. Once you recognize them, you gain the power to change them. Through consistent mental practice, You can overwrite limiting beliefs and install new patterns of confidence and clarity. Start with daily affirmations, not as hollow motivational chants, but as bold declarations of your identity. Statements that challenge the small voice of doubt and replace it with truth. Because every thought repeated with belief becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. Say these words not as distant hopes, but as unfolding truths. I'm becoming a master of my craft. I face every challenge with creativity and resilience. I bring value to every conversation, every interaction. Speak them with conviction, not hesitation. When you do, your subconscious doesn't treat them as mere dreams. It begins processing them as instructions. Instructions for how to think, how to act, and ultimately, how to live. But affirmations alone are just one piece of the mental transformation puzzle. Pair them with gratitude, the intentional focus on what's working rather than what's missing. This doesn't mean ignoring difficulties or pretending everything's perfect. It means giving your mind a fuller, more empowered perspective. Gratitude is like tuning your inner compass to notice opportunities, strengths, and blessings that are otherwise buried beneath layers of stress or scarcity thinking. When gratitude becomes your lens, the smallest wins feel significant. You begin to see that progress is happening, even when perfection hasn't arrived. And when you combine this gratitude with vivid visualization, you complete what many high performers call the mental training trinity. Spend a few minutes each day mentally rehearsing your best self. Picture yourself handling tough situations with calm authority. See yourself speaking with confidence, leading with clarity, and achieving with purpose. Make these images rich with sensory detail. Feel the pride of success. Hear the applause of appreciation. See the exact outcome you're working toward. These aren't fantasies. They are neural blueprints, wiring your brain to move toward what you vividly imagine. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." It's a simple sentence, but one with immense power. Ford's belief wasn't just motivational fluff. It was rooted in his personal experience. At a time when mass automobile production was considered fantasy, Ford didn't just build a car. He redefined an industry. Why? Because he refused to accept inherited mental limitations. His thinking made room for innovation that others never dared to consider. But just as important as what you feed your mind is what you guard it against. Your mind, like a well-tended garden, needs both cultivation and protection. Be fiercely vigilant against the creeping vines of fear, the weeds of cynicism, and the toxic seeds planted by unfiltered opinions or careless media. What you allow and becomes part of your inner narrative, whether you intend it or not. Be deliberate about the content you consume, the voices you listen to, and the conversations you keep alive. Your attention is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely. Ask yourself, what kind of steering wheel am I gripping right now? Is it pointed toward ambition, growth, and mastery? Or has it drifted unconsciously toward mediocrity and maintenance? The trajectory of your life won't answer this with words. It will answer with results. Because your future isn't dictated by luck or external forces. It's shaped, moment by moment, by the direction of your dominant thoughts. Aim them with purpose. Guard them with discipline. And over time, you'll find your life rising to meet the vision you've held all along. Action is the antidote to fear. Fear doesn't thrive in movement. It grows in stillness, in the quiet spaces between intention and execution. The longer you hesitate, the more your mind fills that gap with worst-case scenarios, turning hesitation into a breeding ground for anxiety. But the moment you take even the smallest step, fear starts to shrink. Why does this happen? Because movement generates confidence, and confidence disrupts doubt at its roots. So where do you begin when fear feels overwhelming? Start with an action so small it feels almost laughable. Make a single phone call. Send one message. Write a single paragraph. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for momentum. That tiny act sends a powerful message to your mind. I am moving forward. And with that message, fear begins to retreat. The irony of fear is that it looks largest when you're furthest from it. From a distance, your imagination fills in the blanks with shadowy possibilities. You imagine rejection, failure, embarrassment. You mentally inflate the unknown into something massive and unmanageable. This is known as catastrophizing, a common psychological response that transforms simple challenges into towering threats. But the moment you step forward, something shifts. The fog clears. What once looked like a monster reveals itself to be a manageable task. Why? Because fear loves vagueness, but fades in the face of clarity. Think about a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. From afar, your mind invents conflict, rejection, and awkward silence. But once you're actually speaking, fear gives way to listening, empathy, problem solving. You're no longer imagining the moment. You're living in it. This shift is not just emotional, it's biological. When you take action, your brain shifts neural activity from the amygdala, the center of fear and fight or flight responses, to the prefrontal cortex, which governs rational thinking and decision-making. That's why fear often feels like it evaporates the moment you actually begin. You can't be in two mental places at once. You can't be trapped in fearful anticipation while actively solving a problem. One cancels the other out. So the key is to shrink your commitment down to something your resistance can't argue with. Don't try to write a whole book today. Just write the first sentence. Don't attempt to overhaul your business. Just improve one small process. Don't dive into the hardest conversation. Just send a message to set it up. These small moves spark what psychologists call the progress principle. And here's the beauty of it. Even tiny steps forward create an outsized emotional reward. Each micro win builds momentum. Each small task completed proves to your brain that progress is not only possible, it's already happening. And in that moment, fear doesn't stand a chance. Each small victory is more than just a step forward. It's a deposit into your bank of psychological capital. With every win, no matter how minor, you gain the courage and inner momentum to tackle slightly bigger challenges next time. And perhaps most importantly, action dismantles the illusion that perfection is required. Perfectionism, for all its deceptive charm, is often just fear in disguise. A fear that delays dreams under the guise of not ready yet. But here's the truth. Success doesn't demand flawless execution. It demands movement. It demands iteration. Every imperfect action is a doorway to feedback, and feedback is how you grow. The formula is simple but profound. Act, observe, adjust, repeat. This cycle propels you forward faster than any amount of waiting for the perfect moment. Consider the Wright brothers. Their first flight, it was awkward, brief, hardly impressive by today's standards. And yet, it was history in motion. Just a few feet off the ground, but miles ahead in possibility. Before that moment, flight was a fantasy. After it, it was a fact. They didn't wait until they could circle the globe. They didn't wait until they had perfect designs. They simply proved it could be done. And with each flight after that, they improved. They learned. They adapted. That same pattern repeats through nearly every major innovation. The first telephone call was muffled and barely audible. The first light bulb flickered and faded after only a few hours. The first computer took up an entire room and processed slower than your wristwatch does today. Yet from those humble beginnings came revolutions that reshaped the world. What about your world? What tiny action could you take today that, though small, could become the starting point of something monumental? Don't overthink it. This isn't about changing your life in a single leap. It's about defeating inertia, the silent killer of dreams. Choose something so small it almost feels laughable, then do it immediately. Send that email. Make the call. Write the opening line of your project. Schedule the meeting. Buy the domain. Sign up for the class. The act itself doesn't need to be dramatic. What matters is that it shatters hesitation. Because when you act, you cross a threshold. You prove to yourself that motion is possible. And in that motion, fear begins to loosen its grip. Courage isn't some magical state of being. It's the simple willingness to move forward while fear is still whispering in your ear. You don't need confidence to begin. You gain confidence by beginning. Let your action be the cure for your anxiety. Let it be your answer to hesitation, your response to doubt. In a world where countless people remain stuck in cycles of overthinking, the one who acts, however imperfectly, takes the lead. Now, embrace the growth mindset. A fixed mindset says, "This is who I am." A growth mindset whispers, "This is who I can become." And that subtle shift changes everything. If you believe your talents are fixed, you'll retreat the moment things get hard. But if you believe in growth, real, ongoing, day-by-day transformation, then every challenge becomes an invitation to evolve. Why does this matter so deeply? Because without that mindset, every obstacle feels like the end of the road. With a growth mindset, obstacles don't block your path. They become stepping stones that elevate your journey. But how do you actually build this mindset into your daily life? It begins with celebrating effort over outcome, actively seeking challenges instead of avoiding them, and being willing to learn from feedback, even when it stings. These simple shifts in attitude carry profound implications. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck identified the distinction between a fixed and a growth mindset, and it's arguably one of the most important decisions you'll ever make about your personal development. Those with a fixed mindset view qualities like intelligence, talent, and character as set in stone. Unchangeable traits you're either born with or not, like the color of your eyes or your height. In that world, every challenge becomes a judgment. Every mistake feels like a verdict. Struggle is seen as proof of inadequacy, not progress. Setbacks aren't just frustrating. They become threats to one's identity. But now imagine seeing those very same traits, intelligence, talent, character, not as static but as dynamic like muscles that strengthen with effort. People with a growth mindset believe intelligence expands through learning. Talent is developed through repetition and dedication. Character is molded and deepened through lived experience. With this perspective, failure doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you're in the process of getting better. It's like weightlifting. You need resistance to build strength. This shift in thinking isn't just motivational. It's deeply practical. Research shows that mindset isn't just a psychological curiosity. It's a measurable predictor of success. In fields as diverse as education, sports, entrepreneurship, and even relationships, those with a growth mindset consistently outperform their fixed-minded peers, even when starting from the same level of skill or ability. Children who believe they can improve tend to achieve more academically than those who assume their intelligence is fixed. Businesses led by leaders with a growth orientation navigate change more effectively and innovate more consistently. And personal relationships? They thrive when both people believe that growth is not only possible, but expected. So why does mindset hold such power? Because it determines how you respond when things get difficult, which they always will. People with a fixed mindset often avoid challenges, give up easily, and feel threatened by others' success. In contrast, those with a growth mindset lean in. They treat setbacks as signals to adjust, not reasons to quit. They value feedback, stay curious, and see others' accomplishments as inspiration, not competition. In this way, mindset is not just a belief system. It's a filter that shapes how you interpret the world and how you choose to act in it. It's the lens that turns obstacles into stepping stones and struggle into strength. So how can you develop this transformative mindset? Start by understanding one powerful fact. Your brain is built for growth. Thanks to neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and form new connections, you're never stuck. Learning isn't just about gaining information. It's about literally reshaping your brain to handle more, think differently, and operate at a higher level. Every time you stretch beyond your current level of mastery, something powerful happens. Your brain quite literally begins to rewire itself to handle more, to grow, to adapt. This is neuroplasticity in action. Your mind forging new pathways to support emerging capabilities. But to tap into this transformation, you have to change how you define success. Start by redefining success not as perfection, but as progress. Celebrate the effort you put in, the strategies you develop, the improvements you make, not just the end result. When you accomplish something, don't ask, what does this prove about how talented I am? Instead, ask, what did I learn? How did I grow to make this happen? And when you fall short, resist the urge to label yourself. Don't say, I'm not good enough. Ask instead, what lesson is hidden in this failure? Seek challenges on purpose. Yes, deliberately choose situations that stretch you. Why? Because comfort is often the silent killer of growth. Just like a muscle only strengthens when pushed past its current limit, Your brain grows best when it's nudged into unfamiliar territory. That sense of discomfort when trying something new, that's not a signal to retreat. It's a sign you're growing. Ask yourself this. Are you judging your worth by your past failures or by your willingness to keep learning? That one question reveals everything about whether you're living with a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. The fixed mindset says, I failed, therefore I am a failure. But the growth mindset reframes it. That attempt didn't work. Here's what I'll do differently next time. And here's the reality of the world we live in today. Success doesn't go to those who know everything up front. It goes to those who can adapt, who can evolve. Industries are shifting. Technology is advancing at lightning speed. Problems today are not the same ones we faced yesterday. In this landscape, the ability to learn continuously, to pivot, adjust, and rise again becomes your most valuable skill. Those who believe they can become more will always surpass those who believe they simply are what they are. Your potential isn't fixed. It's not locked in by your DNA, your background, or your past experiences. It's shaped and reshaped every single day by your choices, by your willingness to take on challenges, to endure difficulty, to embrace feedback, and to see success in others as inspiration, not competition. The growth mindset isn't just a nice attitude to have. It's the key that unlocks the future version of you that you haven't met yet. It's the mindset that takes raw potential and turns it into real power. But mindset doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's constantly influenced, molded by something most people overlook, your environment. Your life isn't just shaped by your conscious thoughts. It's sculpted by the invisible forces surrounding you every day. The spaces you occupy, the voices you hear, the content you consume. These are the currents silently directing your path. Think about it. You become the environment you allow. This isn't just poetic language. It's rooted in psychology. Your subconscious mind, the engine driving most of your decisions, is always absorbing. It's taking in the energy of the people around you, the conversations you're part of, the expectations you hear again and again. And over time, it shapes your beliefs, your goals, and even what you think is possible. So ask yourself, what kind of environment are you choosing? And more importantly, what kind of person is that environment shaping you to become? The fears of those around you can be contagious. Just like a virus, their limitations begin to seep into your thinking. You may not consciously agree with their doubts, but the more you're exposed to their scarcity mindset, the more their small thinking starts to feel normal. And without even realizing it, your extraordinary dreams, the ones that once felt destined, begin to feel far-fetched, even foolish. But the reverse is equally true. When you choose to surround yourself with visionaries, with people who think big, dream boldly, and act with conviction, something remarkable happens. Your perspective expands. Their confidence rubs off on you. Their belief in what's possible reshapes your idea of what's realistic. Their drive, their momentum, their standards, they all pull you upward. Have you ever noticed how excellence seems to cluster in certain places? It's not coincidence. Silicon Valley isn't a hub of innovation by accident. Florence during the Renaissance didn't randomly give rise to a surge of artistic brilliance. These environments became fertile ground for greatness because they made excellence the norm. In those spaces, mediocrity wasn't just discouraged, it was unthinkable. Henry Ford understood this principle deeply. Long before he revolutionized the way the world moved, he intentionally forged a connection with Thomas Edison. Why? Because Ford knew that proximity to a mind like Edison's would elevate his own. That relationship didn't just inspire Ford. It reshaped how he saw himself and what he believed was possible. It shifted him from being a curious mechanic to becoming a man with a world-changing mission. There's a powerful mechanism behind this transformation, and it's not just motivational fluff. It's rooted in neuroscience. Your brain is equipped with mirror neurons, which act like subconscious receivers. They pick up the behaviors, beliefs, energy, and habits of the people around you. Without even trying, you start to emulate the environment you spend the most time in. Your surroundings don't merely influence you, they program you. They define your baseline expectations. In a space where high performance is the norm, you naturally rise to meet it. But in a space where mediocrity is tolerated, it becomes easy to slip into comfort, to settle. So ask yourself honestly, are you actively creating the environment that calls the best out of you? Or are you simply absorbing the one that was handed to you? Many people do the latter. They fall into environments by default, not design. Then they wonder why they feel stuck, uninspired, or limited. But here's the truth. The problem often isn't your potential. It's the environment shaping how that potential is expressed. The solution may not be easy, but it is simple. And it begins with courage. The courage to evaluate your surroundings, to make changes where necessary, and to choose environments that challenge you, stretch you, and demand your very best. Be intentional about the environment you place yourself in. Take a moment to evaluate the 5 people you spend the most time with. Do they challenge you to grow or subtly convince you to shrink? Do they ignite possibility or quietly reinforce limitation? Look closely at your media intake. Is it fueling your ambition, creativity, and courage? Or is it dulling your drive and numbing your potential? Even your physical surroundings matter more than you may realize. Are the spaces where you live and work designed to energize you, to inspire focus, to reflect your highest values? Or do they silently drain your energy, clutter your mind, and dull your vision? Sometimes the most transformative decision you can make isn't changing yourself, but changing what surrounds you. Can your environment make you feel smaller than you are? Absolutely. But just as powerfully, the right environment can lift you, stretch you, and remind you of who you were always meant to become. It's essential to remember that your environment is never neutral. It's always in motion, either elevating you toward your potential or slowly dragging you away from it. There is no standing still. The people, conversations, and influences you allow into your daily life are actively shaping your mindset, your habits, and ultimately, your future. So ask yourself, who are you letting mold your path? What expectations and standards are you absorbing just by being in the spaces you're in? What kind of conversations loop in your head long after they've ended? Are they the kind that support your dreams, or the kind that subtly chip away at them? Your destiny isn't built in grand, isolated moments of inspiration. It's formed in the quiet repetition of everyday influences. The currents you choose to swim in, those consistent, invisible forces will, over time, carry you precisely where they're designed to go. Are you choosing those currents wisely? And when it comes to failure, see it for what it truly is. Failure is never a final sentence. It's not a tombstone unless you decide to stop moving forward. In truth, failure is a phenomenal teacher, but speaks in a language only the resilient understand. Too many people misread failure. They take it as a sign to give up, when really, it's an invitation to evolve. The journey toward excellence is never a straight, smooth road. It's a winding path full of instructive detours that test, refine, and reshape who you are becoming. Consider this. Every setback holds within it a custom-designed lesson, one that contains exactly what you need to learn to move ahead. This isn't just inspirational fluff. It's a universal pattern seen in every story of greatness. Your reaction to failure, more than the failure itself, decides the trajectory of your life. When you see failure as a verdict, you close the door to growth. You abandon terrain that might have revealed the next breakthrough. Not because you lacked the talent or the tools, but because you misread the meaning of the moment. But when you meet failure with curiosity and courage, treating it as feedback rather than finality, everything changes. Each mistake becomes a stepping stone. Each disappointment becomes data. And every setback, properly interpreted, becomes a building block for a future stronger than you once imagined. Resilience doesn't develop in the absence of difficulty. It's forged in its presence. The more challenges you face, the more your strength expands. Not because you escape adversity, but because you learn to navigate straight through it. Think about that. Your greatest capabilities don't grow in ease, but in resistance. This explains why some individuals rise to remarkable heights, even when their starting point seems painfully average. Excellence rarely comes from ideal circumstances. It's born from extracting valuable lessons out of repeated, imperfect attempts. Take Marie Curie, for example. Before she ever changed the world of physics and chemistry, she faced unimaginable barriers. She was born in Russian-occupied Poland, where women were denied access to higher education. Her early research was done in crude, under-equipped labs. The odds were stacked heavily against her. Yet instead of surrendering to those limitations, she transformed them into fuel. Her early experiments failed again and again. But rather than abandon her quest, she meticulously documented every misstep, treating each failed result as a vital clue. She didn't just collect data, she harvested insight. And that process ultimately led to her groundbreaking discovery of radioactivity. This relationship with failure didn't merely push her past obstacles. It reshaped who she became. Curie went from a restricted student to one of the most celebrated scientists in history, the only person ever to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different scientific fields. How does such a transformation occur? The answer lies in your brain. Each time you fail, your brain is given a chance to rewire. It learns to recognize errors, test new strategies, and build stronger patterns of action. Failure isn't just something you recover from. It's the very terrain where you evolve. And this truth doesn't stop at personal success. It's the foundation of innovation itself. The inventions and breakthroughs we now rely on were built atop mountains of failed experiments. Every setback contributed a piece of the puzzle. Failure, treated correctly, is not the enemy of progress. It's the architect of it. But in many environments, failure is still misunderstood. It's feared, avoided, even punished. And when that happens, growth halts. Innovation flatlines. Why? Because progress demands experimentation, and experimentation by nature invites failure. So ask yourself honestly, how do you treat your own setbacks? Do you view them as tombstones marking the end? Or do you treat them like textbooks, resources to study, to learn from, to grow through? Most people choose the former. They hit a wall and assume it's final. Then they wonder why their growth feels stunted, why their dreams remain just out of reach. But the real solution is simpler than it seems. Even if it requires courage, normalize failure. Treat it not as something to escape from, but something to engage with wisely. After every setback, pause and reflect. Ask, what did I miss? What's the lesson here? How can I refine my approach? Then write it down. Extract the learning. Apply it with greater precision. Sometimes, the smartest way forward isn't to avoid failure. It's to embrace it as part of your education. Sometimes, growth demands that you let go of perfectionism, of control, of the comfort that comes from predictable outcomes. It might require tough decisions, uncomfortable changes, or the willingness to step into spaces where you're exposed and vulnerable. You may have to develop a healthier relationship with criticism, learning to see feedback not as personal attack, but as a mirror reflecting what needs refinement. After all, failure isn't a verdict on your value. It's a vital ingredient in your evolution. Without it, no meaningful success can exist. So pause and ask yourself, are you truly extracting all the wisdom your failures offer? Or are you rushing past them, trying to move on before the lesson has had a chance to shape you? Are you welcoming failure as a necessary teacher, or secretly hoping to avoid its classroom altogether? Could your fear of imperfection be the very thing slowing down the progress you long for? Your destiny won't be defined by rare moments of success, but by your consistent ability to transform setbacks into stepping stones. The ones who rise highest aren't always the most talented. They're the ones who know how to turn failure into fuel. Master this, and you no longer see failure as an ending. You see it for what it truly is, the raw material of greatness. And here's the shift that changes everything. Start believing beyond your current circumstances. Where you are today isn't who you are forever. Yet too many people live trapped by the limitations of what they can currently see, touch, and measure. But belief works differently. It doesn't wait for proof. It creates the future long before the results arrive. The limits of your life are not etched into the present moment. They're shaped by how far your imagination is willing to reach. Belief builds before reality catches up. This isn't feel-good fluff. It's the invisible force behind every breakthrough. The scope of your vision is the ceiling of your destiny. Think about that. When you allow your current reality to define what's possible, you're choosing to live confined within yesterday's boundaries. The prison of what's practical keeps you stuck in survival mode, never venturing into the space where your fullest potential resides. But when you choose to dream bigger than your surroundings, when your internal vision outpaces your external situation, you activate a chain reaction that begins reshaping the world around you. This kind of belief doesn't rely on perfect conditions. It draws strength from conviction. Your journey unfolds not because the path is clearly marked, but because you refuse to stop looking for it. That's the true origin of extraordinary achievement. It doesn't come from extraordinary circumstances, but from the unwavering decision to believe, even in the face of resistance. Consider Malcolm X. His transformation didn't come from privilege or comfort. It came from a vision that was larger than his past, larger than his surroundings, and larger than what others believed was possible for him. And that belief didn't wait for permission. It demanded a new path. Before Malcolm X became one of the most influential voices of the civil rights movement in the 1960s, his life was marked by overwhelming adversity. He was born into a world steeped in racial hostility, lost his father to violence at the age of 6, and witnessed his mother institutionalized. As a young man, he drifted into crime, eventually landing in prison. By all external measures, his trajectory pointed nowhere near significance. Yet behind bars, something extraordinary began to take root, an unwavering belief in his capacity to evolve. He devoured books, taught himself to articulate powerful ideas, and slowly forged a vision that transcended the steel bars surrounding him. That vision stood in stark contrast to everything his circumstances claimed he was. And that contrast, that belief in a self not yet visible, became the spark of his transformation. Malcolm didn't just hope for a different future. He cultivated the mindset and the discipline to shape it. His journey from inmate to international human rights advocate was not a product of chance, but a belief maintained with fierce intention. A belief that still echoes across generations. This kind of transformation isn't rooted in superficial positivity. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing which reality to obey. When you hold belief that stretches beyond your current conditions, your mind begins to pick up on opportunities that those confined by realistic expectations simply can't see. You detect patterns, solutions, and openings that were always there, but now come into focus through the lens of possibility. Why does this matter? Because it's not just personal growth at stake. This principle is the very engine behind every movement that's ever changed the world. Every invention that redefined what's possible. Every cultural shift that moved us forward. The civil rights pioneers of the 1960s, for instance, didn't operate on the assumption that their oppression was unchangeable. They built momentum from the radical conviction that their current reality did not reflect their worth or their destiny. Your relationship with belief is not a passive one. It's an active force shaping not just what you achieve, but who you're capable of becoming. In spaces where vision is tethered only to what's visible, growth becomes limited and stagnation sets in. But where belief stretches into the unseen, even the most unlikely possibilities start to materialize. So ask yourself, are you living according to what surrounds you? Or are you guided by the magnitude of your inner vision? Are you settling into what is, or reaching toward what could be? Most people allow their circumstances to dictate their ceiling and then wonder why they never rise. But those who lead lives of purpose, they anchor their journey in belief that defies the boundaries of what currently exists. The path forward isn't complicated, but it does demand discipline. Each day, you must make the conscious choice to expand your imagination. How? Begin by immersing yourself in the stories of individuals who overcame circumstances like yours, or worse. Let their triumphs redefine what's possible. Take time to visualize your own success, not vaguely, but with the same vividness others use to anticipate struggle. And speak words that align with where you're going, not where you are. Often, the most profound transformations don't begin with altering your environment, but by shifting what you believe is possible within that environment. This might mean resisting the pull of cynicism, especially when it's cloaked as realism. It may require standing firm in your vision, even when others cast doubt. And yes, it often calls for holding on to belief, even when no external signs justify it. Circumstances are instructors, not rulers. There's no fate so fixed that belief cannot disrupt it. So ask yourself, have your dreams been shaped by your surroundings or by your vision? Have you unknowingly capped your potential because of current limitations? Are you treating the facts of today as the ceiling for tomorrow? Your destiny is not locked in by your present. It's unlocked by your capacity to keep believing beyond what you see. When you master that mindset, you shift the meaning of limitation itself. It no longer signals a dead end. It becomes your launching point. Begin to speak your future into existence, not with hollow affirmations, but with intentional declarations. Because words are seeds. Each one you plant takes root in the soil of your subconscious, shaping what you'll eventually harvest. Speak doubt, and you'll grow weeds. Speak faith, and you'll grow orchards. The words you choose are not passive observations. They are active architects of your future. Think about this. Language doesn't just describe reality, it often precedes it. This isn't poetic sentiment. It's grounded in psychology. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge whether your words reflect fact or fiction. It responds to repetition and tone, treating your consistent speech as a blueprint for what to build next. So when you repeatedly speak of limitation, when you reinforce doubt or inadequacy, you aren't just naming your condition. You're scripting your continuation. The more you declare what's not possible, the more you condition yourself to experience that impossibility. It becomes a cycle. Words shape perception, perception shapes behavior, and behavior shapes outcome. But the reverse is just as powerful. When you intentionally speak of resilience, strength, and capacity, especially in the absence of proof, you begin to forge new internal pathways. You create mental conditions that invite and reinforce growth. It's not that your environment suddenly changes. It's that your inner resolve refuses to remain the same. Your resilience becomes stronger not because the road gets smoother, but because your self-talk refuses to allow retreat. Your abilities expand not because the task is easier, but because your words refuse to make room for failure. This very phenomenon helps explain why certain individuals seem to achieve extraordinary outcomes. Not because they started with better resources or easier paths, but because they mastered the art of self-declaration. Their lives weren't shaped solely by what happened to them, but by what they consistently spoke over themselves. Remarkable achievement doesn't stem from perfect circumstances. It stems from superior self-communication, repeated with conviction regardless of the external reality. Take Maya Angelou. Before she became one of the most powerful voices in American history, she endured trauma so severe it led her into silence. For nearly 5 years, she didn't speak a word. Yet when she did find her voice again, she chose her words with sacred precision, treating language as a something living, something sacred. She often said, words are things. They get on the walls. They get in your wallpaper. They get in your rugs, in your upholstery, in your clothes, and finally into you. Angelou didn't simply speak about strength and dignity after her success. She spoke those truths into existence long before they were evident. Her affirmations weren't reflections of what had already happened. They were blueprints for what would become. This wasn't just psychological, it was neurological. When you declare ambitious futures consistently, you actually rewire your brain. Specifically, you reprogram the reticular activating system, the part responsible for filtering what you notice. Suddenly, you begin to see opportunities and connections that had always been there, hiding in plain sight. But you didn't notice them before because your language had limited your perception. The world hadn't changed. Your awareness had. And this principle extends well beyond personal growth. It's foundational to leadership. Every meaningful movement in history, every major innovation, every cultural shift began with someone bold enough to speak of a future others could not yet imagine. Visionaries aren't defined by what they inherit. They're defined by what they declare. True leaders don't just manage current reality. They articulate what could be with such clarity and certainty that others begin to see it too. They paint pictures with words, vivid, compelling, impossible to ignore. That's the secret. Your relationship with language doesn't just describe the world around you. It actively determines how much of that world you can change. In environments where speech is dominated by fear, complaint, or limitation, progress withers. But in places where people dare to speak beyond the evidence, where declarations stretch past what's currently visible, new possibilities are unlocked. New paths form, and change, once unimaginable, begins to take root. So the real question becomes, what future are you speaking into existence right now? Far too often, people simply describe their current reality, then wonder why the next day feels like a carbon copy of the last. But here's the truth. What you consistently verbalize becomes the script your life follows. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require daily discipline. You must develop conscious authority over your verbal world. Begin by declaring affirmations out loud, boldly, unapologetically, as if the entire universe is listening and taking note. Eliminate the language that contradicts the life you're aiming to build. Replace tentative phrases like, I'll try, with confident declarations like I will. Swap out I hope for I know. It may seem like a small shift, but the transformation it triggers is massive. Sometimes, the most powerful change doesn't begin with altering your environment, but with changing the language you use to describe and define it. This means learning to speak with conviction even when results are nowhere in sight, holding on to uplifting declarations even as obstacles mount, and affirming future victories while you're still in the thick of the battle. Remember this, your words are not passive narrators of your journey. They're architects, actively shaping what comes next. There is no significant breakthrough that wasn't first spoken into possibility. So ask yourself honestly, what story are you scripting into your future? Are your words drawing borders around your potential, or are they tearing those walls down? Are you using language that mirrors limitation, or one that expands horizons? The quality of your destiny is built not just on the inspiration of a few grand moments, but on the steady rhythm of possibility-infused declarations you make every day. Master the way you speak about your life, and you'll begin to master where it's headed. And once your words are aligned, the next step is clear. Commit to lifelong learning. Education isn't a season, it's a lifelong pursuit. While many close the book on learning the moment school ends, those who lead with lasting impact remain students of life forever. The true difference between those who rise and continue rising and those who plateau early often lies in one simple decision: whether their pursuit of knowledge ends with a diploma or evolves into a daily discipline. Understand this. Your current knowledge has a shelf life. This isn't a discouragement. It's a pragmatic truth. The insights that helped you succeed last year might not be enough to sustain your progress tomorrow. The world keeps accelerating forward, and those who stop learning don't fall behind overnight. They quietly drift into irrelevance. The danger isn't in lacking talent. It's in failing to renew your intellectual capital. Just as a computer becomes outdated without regular updates, so too does your mind if you stop feeding it. The commitment to ongoing education isn't optional. It's essential for anyone who wants to stay relevant, inspired, and impactful in a world that never stops evolving. On the other hand, when you make a conscious decision to embrace lifelong learning, when curiosity becomes a daily habit rather than occasional exercise, you remain perpetually relevant and increasingly impactful. Your insights don't deepen because the world suddenly becomes easier to navigate. They grow because your perception sharpens, your awareness expands, and your mind remains in motion. Your contributions evolve not because life makes fewer demands, but because your growing knowledge equips you to answer with greater precision and power. This is the secret behind why certain individuals continue to rise, even when others around them hit a plateau. Sustained excellence isn't the result of raw talent alone. It's born of a relentless hunger to grow, learn, and adapt. Take Leonardo da Vinci as a striking example. Before becoming the embodiment of Renaissance brilliance, da Vinci made one powerful decision: to build his life around learning. That single choice shaped everything that followed. With no formal education beyond basic literacy and math, da Vinci transformed himself into an expert in anatomy, engineering, botany, hydrodynamics, and dozens of other fields. He wasn't handed brilliance. He built it, page by page, question by question, in thousands of notebooks filled with sketches, hypotheses, and detailed observations. It was this unshakable commitment to continuous learning that elevated him from humble beginnings to become the most celebrated polymath in history, an influence that still echoes across science, art, and design to this day. But what powered that transformation wasn't just the collection of facts. It was something deeper, the rewiring of the mind itself. When you commit to ongoing learning, your brain doesn't just store more information, it evolves. Through a process called neuroplasticity, it becomes more agile, more responsive, more capable of making powerful connections. Your ability to identify patterns improves. Your capacity to solve complex problems grows sharper. Your imagination becomes fertile ground for innovation. And slowly but surely, you stop reacting to the world and begin shaping it. This truth doesn't apply only to individuals. It defines the most visionary companies and leaders as well. The organizations that remain industry leaders over decades are the ones that prioritize a culture of learning. They don't rest on yesterday's expertise. They fuel progress by rewarding curiosity, experimentation, and the courage to ask new questions. Great leaders within these cultures don't just rely on what they already know. They model growth, challenge assumptions, and commit to expanding their own understanding, knowing that what they learn today may open doors that others never even notice. Your relationship with learning shapes far more than just the size of your knowledge base. It fundamentally defines your ability to adapt, evolve, and stay relevant in a rapidly changing world. In environments where intellectual complacency takes root, obsolescence becomes more than a possibility. It becomes the default. But in spaces where learning is actively pursued and prioritized, relevance isn't fleeting. It persists regardless of how dramatically the external landscape shifts. So ask yourself honestly, are you treating your education as a framed certificate on the wall, or as a blade that must be sharpened every single day? Most people fall into the former category, proudly displaying past accomplishments while quietly wondering why their professional edge seems to grow duller over time. The answer, while simple, demands discipline. Build daily rituals around learning. Read books that challenge your assumptions rather than merely reinforcing what you already believe. Seek out mentors, not just peers, whose expertise in specific areas far exceeds your own. Remain curious, even when life exhausts you. Question what others take for granted, and investigate the beliefs that rarely get examined. Sometimes, the most effective strategy for advancing your career isn't chasing external opportunities, but investing in your internal growth. The next breakthrough might not require a new job or a new project. It might require a new skill, a deeper understanding, or a broader mindset. And often, that means facing uncomfortable truths, admitting you don't know, embracing the vulnerability of being a beginner again, or humbling yourself enough to learn from someone you once considered a rival. Remember, true education isn't about the accumulation of accolades. It's about expansion. Expanding your thinking, your perspective, and your capacity to contribute meaningfully. Without this kind of ongoing refinement, lasting success remains out of reach. So pause and reflect. Has your education become a relic of the past? Or is it a living adventure that continues to evolve? Is your understanding growing wider or quietly shrinking under the weight of routine? Are you investing in your intellectual development with the same seriousness and urgency that you give to your job, your finances, or your relationships? Because in the end, your destiny won't be written by what you already know. It will be shaped by your willingness to continuously explore what you don't. Master this discipline of lifelong learning, and you'll stop treating education as a one-time achievement. Instead, it becomes your greatest competitive edge, an infinite advantage in an ever-changing world. When you commit to growth, something shifts. You begin to see opportunities where others only see obstacles. Problems no longer appear as punishments, but as invitations, gateways to expansion. But here's the catch. Most people stand frozen, staring at walls, never realizing that hidden within those walls are doors. So the real question becomes, will you learn to look for them? Where one person sees a barrier, another discovers a bridge, often in the very same set of circumstances. It's not the conditions that differ, but the lens through which they're viewed. Obstacles have a unique way of uncovering insights that smooth paths often conceal. This isn't just feel-good language. It's the raw reality of innovation and entrepreneurship. The very friction points that discourage most people often hold the seeds of transformation, if only they're examined with the right perspective. What seems at first glance to be a roadblock can actually become the signpost that directs you to a more effective path. But when your focus remains fixated on the pain, the stress, or the inconvenience, you unconsciously close the door to potential. It's not that solutions don't exist. It's that they remain out of reach because your mindset has narrowed your vision. And slowly, the obstacle shifts from being a challenge to solve to becoming a part of your identity. Instead of asking, how can I overcome this? You begin thinking, this is just the way things are. But the moment you begin to consciously reframe the problem as a prompt, as an invitation for creativity rather than a trigger for frustration, everything changes. Resourcefulness awakens. Possibilities multiply. Resilience is no longer about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to build within it. Your greatest innovations rarely come in times of ease. They are born out of necessity, crafted in the fire of constraint. In fact, this pattern explains why some of the most successful people and companies manage to turn massive market disruptions into opportunities that others completely overlook. Just look at the story of Andrew Carnegie. Long before he became one of the richest industrialists in history, his life was marked by overwhelming hardship. He was born into poverty in Scotland, immigrated to America at the age of 13, and worked grueling factory jobs for mere pennies. He had no formal business training, no connections, no apparent advantages. But Carnegie didn't just survive those circumstances, he used them. His early financial struggles instilled a level of discipline that shaped his every business decision. Being an outsider to the industry freed him from the limitations of conventional thinking. And the hands-on experience he gained working in factories gave him insights into efficiency that elite executives simply didn't have. Instead of seeing his background as a barrier, Carnegie treated it as a blueprint. He turned what others saw as deficits into competitive advantages. And in doing so, he revolutionized the steel industry, built one of the greatest fortunes ever accumulated, equivalent to over $300 billion today, and changed the face of American manufacturing. The lesson is clear. The obstacle is not the end of the path. More often than not, it's the very thing that shapes the path forward. What drives this kind of transformation goes far beyond simple persistence. It's not just about refusing to give up. It's about changing how your brain perceives difficulty itself. When you consistently train yourself to look for opportunity inside every obstacle, you literally begin rewiring your brain's internal alarm system. What others interpret as warning signs or threats, you start processing as useful data, clues that point you toward your next breakthrough. This isn't just a personal development trick. It's a fundamental principle behind market leadership and long-term innovation. The companies that disrupt industries aren't just solving obvious problems. They're finding possibilities buried inside what everyone else has already labeled impossible. True innovators don't run from difficulty. They dig into it. They mine it like gold, uncovering hidden insights that open up entirely new markets and shift the playing field. Your relationship with obstacles doesn't just determine whether you succeed or fail. It shapes your capacity to innovate, to lead, to rise. In environments where problems are met with complaint, where discomfort triggers avoidance, growth grinds to a halt. But in environments where obstacles spark curiosity and thoughtful examination, breakthroughs become not just possible, but inevitable. So ask yourself, when adversity comes knocking, what's your reflex? Do you resist and complain? Or do you lean in and explore? Most people default to the former and then wonder why nothing ever changes. But those who take the latter approach begin to discover a kind of clarity hidden inside the chaos. The shift isn't complicated, but it takes practice. Discipline your thinking to default to curiosity. The moment a problem shows up, train yourself to immediately ask, where is the opportunity in this? What's the hidden benefit I'm being challenged to discover? What might this difficulty reveal that success would have kept hidden? Sometimes the real asset isn't a life free from struggle. It's your ability to redefine the struggle itself. It's your capacity to turn what looks like a closed door into a detour that leads somewhere better. Of course, developing this mindset may require uncomfortable changes. It might mean confronting long-held beliefs, letting go of limiting assumptions, or embracing uncertainty with open arms. But remember this, Obstacles are not placed in your path to stop you. They exist to help you build the path forward. No meaningful accomplishment has ever come without first learning to navigate the terrain of difficulty with vision, patience, and creativity. So take a moment and ask yourself honestly, are you viewing problems as punishments to endure or as portals to something greater? Do the challenges you face today drain your resolve? Or do they spark your creativity? Is it possible that the very obstacles blocking your path contain opportunities that others are simply unable to see? In truth, your destiny is not defined by the number of problems you face, but by your ability to extract hidden value from each and every one of them. When you master this perspective, you don't just handle problems, you redefine them. You stop seeing barriers as dead ends and begin viewing them as the raw materials for your next level. It's a complete shift in mindset, a quiet revolution in how you relate to adversity. And once you've made that shift, everything else starts to change. One of the most overlooked but powerful factors in this transformation is your environment. Specifically, the people you surround yourself with. You must surround yourself with builders, not breakers. Why? Because your inner circle is more than social company. It's the invisible architect of your future. Builders lift you, challenge you to grow, support your ambitions, and encourage you to dream even bigger. Breakers, on the other hand, slowly erode your energy with doubt, criticism, and negativity. Over time, they don't just affect your mood, they shape your mindset. Your circle is not just a reflection of your present. It's a blueprint for your future. Proximity is power, not in some abstract, motivational sense, but in hard neurological reality. Your brain, by design, tunes itself to the dominant thoughts, attitudes, and emotional frequencies of those closest to you. Whether you realize it or not, you begin to think, act, and dream in sync with your environment. If you allow breakers into your closest space, those who instinctively shoot down ideas, label big dreams as naive, or respond to hope with sarcasm, you unintentionally build invisible walls around your potential. Your vision doesn't shrink because you've lost your ability to dream, but because your environment tells you those dreams aren't welcome. You begin to self-censor, to lower your expectations, and over time, your boldest ideas never see the light of day. Not because they were unworthy, but because the soil you planted them in was hostile to growth. Now imagine the opposite. When you intentionally build your environment around people who think boldly, speak life into ideas, and see obstacles as invitations, something powerful happens. You create an ecosystem where courage thrives. Risk doesn't disappear, but it feels more manageable because you're no longer facing alone. Creativity doesn't become easier, it becomes more fruitful because your ideas land in soil that nurtures them. That's why certain places and communities seem to produce clusters of exceptional achievement. It's not magic. It's the compound effect of collective belief, encouragement, and shared standards that make greatness the norm instead of the exception. Breakthrough innovation almost never emerges in isolation. It thrives through dynamic collaboration, the kind that happens when great minds come together, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Think about J.P. Morgan. Before becoming one of the most powerful financiers in American history, he understood a profound truth. Relationships shape destinies. While many in the late 1800s were locked in ruthless competition, Morgan chose a different path. Rather than fighting for dominance, he strategically aligned himself with visionary industrialists. He didn't just fund innovation, he cultivated it. Morgan created what could be called informal builder circles, gathering pioneers like Edison, Westinghouse, and Tesla around shared goals. These weren't just business meetings, they were incubators of transformation. That intentional network of forward thinkers helped Morgan evolve from a competitive banker into a foundational architect of American progress. His reach extended far beyond Wall Street. His influence electrified cities, built the nation's railroads, and revolutionized manufacturing. And the true source of his power? It wasn't just the money he controlled. It was the relationship capital he built, his ability to unite exceptional individuals toward a common mission. What made this so powerful goes beyond traditional networking. When you're surrounded by builders, you tap into a collective intelligence that no single person can access alone. What stalls one mind can be solved swiftly when ideas collide from multiple perspectives. It's not magic, it's design. This same principle holds true not just for individuals, but for entire organizations. The most groundbreaking companies don't just assemble talented people. They create intentional cultures that attract builders and naturally repel breakers. They don't just assign tasks. They build environments where collaboration becomes the default, not the exception. Because your network does more than open doors. It subtly, powerfully sets the standard for your thinking. In circles dominated by breakers, mediocrity can feel like ambition. But in rooms full of builders, extraordinary becomes the new normal. So ask yourself, are you surrounded by builders who expand your thinking, challenge your limits, and elevate your goals? Or are you seated at tables where vision is suffocated by doubt, fear, or small thinking? Most people passively accept their circle out of convenience. Then they wonder why their potential feels stifled and their dreams endlessly postponed. The solution, as always, isn't complex, but it does demand courage. It begins with a bold and honest assessment of your relationships. Take a close look at your circle. Who among them are the builders? You'll know them by how their words uplift rather than drain you, how their eyes spark when they speak of new possibilities, how their conversations revolve around ideas, not idle gossip or complaints. These are the people whose presence inspires momentum. Invest in them, intentionally, generously, and consistently. At the same time, be willing to clearly recognize the breakers, the ones who dwell endlessly on problems without offering solutions, who highlight limitations but never alternatives, who spread fear but lack faith. You don't need confrontation, but you do need clarity. Create healthy distance without drama or resentment. Sometimes, the most powerful growth decision isn't about acquiring new skills. It's about cultivating new connections. This shift might feel uncomfortable at first. It might mean stepping away from circles that feel safe, yet slowly suffocate your potential. It might mean entering environments where you're no longer the most accomplished person in the room, or choosing to stand firm when others try to pull you back down to their level of comfort and familiarity. But isn't that discomfort worth it if it opens the door to who you're truly capable of becoming? Never forget, association isn't merely about affinity, it's about direction. Who you spend your time with shapes who you're becoming. No transformation is sustainable without an environmental shift. So pause and ask yourself, who fills your daily orbit? Do your closest relationships reflect where you're going or where you've been? Are you surrounding yourself with people who push you forward or people who anchor you to the past? Your destiny won't be determined by a burst of motivation, but by the steady, ongoing influence of those closest to your dreams. Choose wisely, because those voices, those energies, those habits, they silently mold the version of you that will show up tomorrow. And remember this, success always leaves clues. The truly excellent don't move through life mysteriously. They leave behind trails. Their decisions, habits, and philosophies are all visible to the one who chooses to observe. Achievement at the highest level isn't some untouchable miracle. It's a repeatable pattern, a code that any dedicated student can learn to crack, if they're willing to pay attention. History doesn't just repeat itself. It whispers wisdom to those who are willing to listen. This isn't some lofty idea. It's deeply practical truth. The same timeless principles that propelled extraordinary individuals across generations remain consistent today. They're not hidden in secret vaults. They're right there, in plain sight, waiting for those disciplined enough to study them instead of merely applauding from the sidelines. When you find yourself admiring someone's success, but never stop to examine how they got there, when you celebrate results without dissecting the road that led to them, you unknowingly commit to unnecessary struggle. Trial and error becomes your only teacher, not because wisdom was out of reach, but because you chose not to retrieve it. You waste valuable time reinventing wheels that others have already engineered to perfection. But there's another way. When you shift from being a passive admirer to an active student, when you treat success as a blueprint to decode rather than a spectacle to watch, something powerful happens. You compress time. Lessons that once took decades to learn become available to you in weeks or months. Your trajectory sharpens, not because you have some rare talent, but because you've absorbed the distilled genius of those who came before you. Your decisions get better, not because conditions change, but because your mental framework, your models for thinking and acting, are shaped by proven excellence. Isn't that what separates those who rise quickly from those who stay stuck, endlessly restarting? Exceptional progress isn't the result of brute force or endless grind. It's the outcome of strategic application, of studying and applying principles that have already been tested, refined, and validated. Walt Disney understood this long before he ever became a household name. Before transforming the world of entertainment, he developed a relentless habit of studying successful systems across different fields. He wasn't just drawing cartoons. He was analyzing how department stores were laid out to influence customer flow, applying that knowledge when designing the pathways of Disneyland. He visited factories to learn about industrial production lines, then used that insight to streamline his animation process. Disney didn't confine his learning to his own industry. He pulled ideas from architecture, urban design, and theater to shape immersive worlds where storytelling came alive. This obsession with studying success turned him from an aspiring artist into a global visionary, one whose innovations continue to define entertainment today. What fueled this transformation wasn't mere imitation. It ran much deeper than copying surface-level tactics. When you immerse yourself in the study of success across a wide range of disciplines, your mind begins to recognize patterns, recurring principles that remain hidden to the casual observer. While others may see unrelated accomplishments, you start noticing the common threads, the universal laws that quietly shape them all. This isn't just about personal growth, it scales to entire organizations. The most innovative companies don't stumble upon greatness by chance. They don't rely solely on fresh ideas. Instead, they make it a deliberate practice to study excellence wherever it's found, even outside their own industry. They borrow principles, adapt methods, and implement systems that have been tested and proven elsewhere. That's how they stay ahead. The most effective leaders do more than just drive performance. They nurture a culture of continuous learning, an environment where every success story becomes a case study, and every process is a chance to level up. They know that progress doesn't always mean reinventing the wheel. Sometimes it means observing how others turn their wheels faster and learning exactly why. Your relationship with proven success models doesn't just fine-tune your efficiency. It unlocks your capacity for true innovation. In places where constant reinvention is mistaken for originality, progress drags. But in environments where thoughtful study informs strategic action, advancement accelerates. It grows not just faster, but smarter. So consider this. Are you simply admiring greatness from afar, applauding it like a spectator? Or are you examining it up close, breaking it down to understand what makes it work? Most people stay in the audience, then wonder why their own journey feels stuck in slow motion. The path forward isn't mysterious, but it does demand discipline. Build a habit of intentional study. Read biographies of exceptional individuals in your field, and even in adjacent fields. Don't just look at what they accomplished. Focus on the pivotal decisions they made to get there. Study processes over results. Extract timeless principles rather than mimicking fleeting tactics. Notice patterns that repeat across industries and generations. Sometimes, the key to exponential growth isn't simply working harder. It's studying smarter. It's about increasing the effectiveness of your learning, not just the intensity of your effort. That often requires a level of humility many resist, acknowledging that others have already solved the very problems you're still wrestling with. It means putting ego aside long enough to absorb what works, even if it didn't come from you. And then, there comes a moment when you must choose. Decide, then burn the ships behind you. Why? Because partial commitments act like invisible shackles. They hold you back, tethering you to comfort zones you should have left behind. But full decisions? They give you wings. They set you free. The real difference between those who rise to greatness and those who only flirt with it doesn't lie in talent or luck. It lies in the clarity and finality of their decision. When you leave yourself a backup plan, fear will always find it. It sneaks in through the exit you left cracked open, It whispers excuses and justifications when the road gets hard. That's why the burn the ships metaphor isn't just some dramatic flourish. It's a psychological strategy. The very moment you eliminate the possibility of going backward, your entire mind reorganizes itself. It stops wasting precious energy on how to escape and redirects that force toward figuring out how to overcome. Think about how radically different your behavior becomes when failure is no longer an option. You stop asking, should I keep going? And start asking, how do I make this work? Obstacles become puzzles instead of roadblocks. Fear transforms into fuel. You unlock reserves of focus and creativity you never realized were inside you. But how do you truly commit in a way that transforms mindset into movement? First, declare your dream publicly. Speak it out loud. Share it with people who will hold you to your word. When your intentions are known, so is your accountability. You create social pressure that reinforces personal resolve. Your word becomes more than just a statement. It becomes a contract, not just with others, but with yourself. Next, invest financially in your vision. When your money is involved, your focus sharpens. It's not just about dollars, it's about belief. Every dollar spent isn't just a transaction, it's a declaration. I believe this matters. I believe this path leads to something worthy. And finally, perhaps the hardest, but most transformative of all, cut off the escape routes. Eliminate the safety nets. As long as Plan B remains alive in the background, Plan A will never receive your full creative power. It will never become urgent enough to force the breakthroughs you're capable of achieving. The very safety net you think is protecting you may, in reality, be the thing quietly capping your potential. It lulls you into security, but it also limits how high you're willing or able to climb. History remembers Hernán Cortés not just for his bold expedition, but for a single dramatic decision that defined it. Upon landing on the shores of Mexico in 1519, he gave an unthinkable order: burn the ships. With that one act, he erased any possibility of retreat. There would be no turning back. Conquest wasn't just the goal, it became the only path forward. And they succeeded, not because the odds were in their favor, but because failure simply wasn't an option. Can you say the same about your own path? Have you fully committed? Or are you still lingering in a land of maybe? Does your calendar truly reflect your deepest priorities? Or does it expose hesitation you haven't admitted? Does your bank account show investment in your vision? Or is it quietly funding your exit strategy? Take a close look at your daily actions. Are they launching you toward your dream? Or are they simply helping you tread water in a pool of comfort? The moment of true decision doesn't arrive when you say, I want this. It arrives when you close every back door. It's when you strike the match and burn the ships, knowing there's no going back. Full commitment can feel terrifying. It strips away the luxury of options and throws you into the unknown. But it's in that very space where retreat is no longer possible that we meet the strongest version of ourselves. That's when hidden resilience, untapped strength, and powerful creativity rise to the surface. Today, take inventory. Where are your ships? What safety plans, lingering doubts, or half-hearted efforts are keeping you anchored to a smaller life? Name them, then light the fire. Not because success is promised, but because full commitment is the only path that ever truly leads there. The world doesn't celebrate those who casually entertain 10 different paths. It rewards those who choose one and throw themselves into it with everything they've got. Decide, then burn the ships. Stop second-guessing your potential. Start believing, truly believing, that you are capable of more than you've ever dared to imagine. Break free from the invisible chains that have kept you small. Move forward with clarity. Dream big with boldness. Chase your vision with unshakable conviction. Because the future, it doesn't belong to the cautious. It belongs to the brave, the ones who believe beyond reason and act without retreat. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Wishing you health, happiness, and the courage to live fully. Don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily. Your growth begins here.